Hello friends, thank you for joining me for another episode of Archaeologists in Quarantine. Today I'm joined by Marco Valente, a researcher and commercial archaeologist. Thank you, Marco, for joining us. How are you today?
I'm listening with lots of cuts. I think we went right. Yeah, I'm fine, thank you.
So,
And you?
yeah, we're good, thank you. Just a little disclaimer for any viewers. We may have some technical issues today as Marco is in the beautiful Mozambique, currently in lockdown. So we might have a few little hiccups along the way. But Marco, did you hear all of that?
Yeah.
Yeah, you did.
I did.
Brilliant. Okay.
Okay.
So, Marco, if it's possible, let's go straight into it just in case the internet goes. What is the main archaeological and historical time periods in Portugal? What's the most famous?
Well, actually, in Portugal, in the late years, there's been a major development in Lower in Alentejo because of a series of dams that have been built there that had to have archaeologists following all the machine works and other colleagues also coming to do some surveys. So we actually ended up learning a lot more than what we did previously. So far, more than 4,000 surveys have been done ever since the project from the dam of the Alqueva started. So it's been a major growth in knowledge for all periods, actually.
Wow.
But mostly Iron Age, Bronze Age, Roman, because that part of Alentejo, they felt their presence a little bit more there.
And how, again, archaeologically speaking, how was Portugal before the Roman Empire? What's the main, for you, what's the most important find?
Before the Roman Empire, we still have lots of doubts. We also have like the southern um, writing that it was a form of writing that was occurred previously from the Roman came in, even from the Phoenicians. When they came in, they influenced that language, but on Iron Age, until the Iron Age, the people were still using it. Mostly, we think on the funerary monuments because that's all we've got left. Those schist plaques that survive and that late were reused in Roman buildings and other sort of buildings that we and all the other colleagues have been recovering them. So we had a writing system. So that means that the civilizations that were living here, they were known and they were legendary. But most of the information we still got, they came from the Greek and Roman geographers that spoke about the Connie people and other people living by. But it's still a big blur. And only through the archaeological surveys, we can learn a little bit more about all these people that existed here on the Iberian Peninsula before the Romans.
So it's actually very important work that's been undergoing at the moment. So fingers crossed you guys get more funding to do more.
Yeah, that's it. But to get funding from the state is very difficult because less than 1% of all the state uh, budget goes to all the cultural activity in Portugal. So we're still underpaid, we and all the artists, the theater companies, the ballet, everything, musicians. So, and also in Lower Alentejo, they started to make some large and intensive farming. And while doing those things, most of the times start entering on the fields and plowing the fields, even without archaeologists coming to follow those works. So lots of, like thousands of sites get destroyed every month. So it's a
So
little bit shameful.
how is commercial archaeology in Portugal? How is the protection when it comes to developing?
Commercial, yeah, commercial archaeology in Portugal, mostly all of the colleagues, when they work like in false green receipts. So they're actually working on a project that will last like 1 year, 2 years or something like that. They could make a contract, but mostly what archaeological companies do is that they people uh, go for it, and they even ask if you have your own vehicle and things like that. So it's far more different than in the UK. Yeah, we don't have, if for instance a colleague ends up being unemployed, they don't even get the right to unemployment fund, although they were paying for taxes and for social security when they were working. So that's a big issue as well, that archaeology, the archaeological classes is fighting also in Portugal.
So even less job stability than in the UK. I think we take it for granted in the UK, guys. It looks like we've got the good end of the stick for now.
Yeah, yeah, and then with all those works like the the train that's going to the train line that's going to be built from London, I think, to the north until next to Scotland, right?
It's to
To end at the Scottish
Manchester.
border. Okay.
They're
Okay.
thinking of going further. They are thinking, but
Until Scotland, right?
who knows? I mean, would be good in the sense of archaeologically speaking. It would be interesting, but I'm not sure. It's still a big debate if the construction will actually happen, because we're doing, this during preliminary works, so that's why we are there. We're doing everything before they even develop, and they've already gone over budget. So there are a lot of talks to what might happen next. But it is very good. It's definitely opened up a lot of opportunities for archaeologists, especially newbies who are coming into archaeology for the first time, and people who want to get back into it. It's a great opportunity. And anyone who wants to come work in the UK, now's your time before it's too late. So yeah. In regards to after the Roman Empire, or even during the Roman Empire, what is the most significant structures or archaeological sites that you can think of that kind of symbolizes the Roman Empire? Is there like any forts or castles or anything like that?
Yeah, actually in Castro Verde area, there are some Roman forts. Some of them have been excavated like in the 1970s, 1980s by a colleague of ours, Dr. Manuel Maya, and his late deceased wife, Maria Maya, as well. And but usually when he did these kind of surveys, it was for his PhD. So they just did a small survey, and that was it. Lots of those forts are still waiting to get fully excavated, to get fully understand of what their task was actually, and if they are linked, for instance, with the old copper castle. That's brought up some discussions, because the old copper castle, some people say that yes, it was a large major settlement, and some other colleagues say that it could have been the capital of the Coney people. Others say that it was in Beja, but we don't know still where it was.
I think with that, we should probably get into the slideshow that I created, because I want to learn more about the castle. But before that, maybe we could have a little videos, if that's okay with you. I'll share my screen and we can maybe start to address Pias. Is that how you pronounce it? Pias or Pias?
Pias, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's where everything started, actually, yes.
Okay. So I'm going to try to share my screen. Let's see how this goes. everyone is used to something going wrong when I try to share this. So I'm just going to try now. Okay, let's do this. Present. Okay. Ta-da! Pias.
Yes, yes, that's it.
Okay, so first thing, let's show everyone where Pias is located, so everyone gets a good idea of what we are speaking about today. So here is Portugal, next to Spain, for anyone who doesn't know. And
Yeah, it was very good that you did it, because usually people think that Portugal is part of Spain. It's not.
Yeah, it's not. It's true. It's one of those things. If you're not, for us, Western society, well, Western countries, West Europe, UK, we're going to know exactly where it is. But further afield, I guess it's if it's not in your geographical sphere, you might not know. Okay, so PS is right here, and we see Serpa, Bija, yes, and
Yeah.
Mora.
Yeah, Mora.
So why is this location significant?
Pias is significant because when I first arrived there, people said that Pias was famous for the wine, was famous also for the cheese, and when I reached there and started talking with people from that locality, is almost like you're getting inside a movie like the Lord of the Rings, and you're arriving to the Shire, and all of a sudden everyone treats you as family. So you feel like when you're speaking to those people and they come to you and they want to learn more about what is archaeology and what are like the access from Neolithic times, because people say, oh, I have like a stone at my home and I don't know what it is. And they bring it to us and then we explain everything. And they say like, well, this stone was from my parent. My late deceased parent gave it to me. But now that you explained to me that it's like a votive axe from Neolithic times, now it's even more valuable to me, the thing that you say. So people received us as one of their own. So I think that when me and my team we were working there, we felt like we were part of Pias. And that's one of the things. Another thing is that when we start to do our work, we start to find findings from the Iron Age, Bronze Age, Roman era, and these are massive things. They are really very important objects, and people also they keep objects of their own. It's like they know that those objects are important. They may not know what time period they are, what do they mean, but as soon as an archaeologist appears and starts speaking to them about it, their eyes become shining and they're proud of it and they say, wow, this is our history and we never knew it. So it's a little bit, we are the archaeologists discovering a little bit more about that area, and the people living in that area, those whole communities, learning a little bit more about themselves with the help of the archaeologists.
It's amazing. It's one of those things when you well, for me, when I excavate abroad and I'm able to live in the same region or the same little town that we're excavating in, it changes the whole experience. It really, there's something so magical about it, and I can't describe it. It's what I miss, actually.
Yeah, because when we are passionate about things and we share our passion, it almost seems like all the other people around us gets infected, on a good sense.
It's so true. You're right. Yeah, positive vibes, as I say, always. So I found a video of Mora. Let's try. Let's see. Just a little quick glimpse, some drone shots for people to visualize a little bit more of the beauty of towns like this in this region. Unfortunately, nothing in Pias I could find.
We're working on it in the book.
Esse amor, meu Deus, eu faço tudo. Declamo os poemas mais lindos do universo. A ver se te convenço que a minha alma nasceu para ti. Será preciso um milagre para que o meu coração se alegre. Juro, não vou desistir. Faça chuva,
So have you been here
faça sol,
before?
porque eu preciso de ti para seguir.
To Mora?
Quem me dera.
Yes, yes, I've been there because when I was studying Pias, I had to go to Mora and to Serpa because Pias belonged to Mora, and then it came to be part of Serpa. And there are things that were discovered in Pias in museums in Mora and in museums in Serpa as well. So,
So with, I've actually
yeah, but
found...
Mora is like, this is very beautiful.
Oh yeah, it looks magical. It does look magical. I could listen to that music all day as well. I've actually found a video, was actually a vlogger in Mora Castle. So could you just maybe explain what we're about to see, maybe a little bit about the history of this castle? Sorry to put you on the spot, but as you said, you've been there, so hopefully you remember. Let's see. Mora Castle. Here we go. Hopefully you can see this. So what's so significant about Mora Castle?
Well, Mora Castle, these things that we're seeing here are the excavations that have been going on there with some colleagues that work on Mora municipality, and more some interesting things about the Islamic period. And also they found an inscription from the southwestern writing as well there. It was out of context, but it also served to prove that in the Iron Age, Mora was already an important settlement as well.
And this is also even these little daggers that they have. Was that found in the castle?
I cannot tell you for sure because I've not been to that part of the castle itself. I just saw the excavations there with the colleagues.
It looks amazing, the excavations. It's really, wow.
But most likely they are, because usually when they do this sort of exhibit there, the things came from the excavations, from the archaeological excavations there, yeah.
I'm jealous of this guy right now.
Yeah, I think everyone is.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's just one of those things. Imagine looking at the landscape. Oh, amazing. Look, he's even having, what is that, an orange? He's about to eat an orange with that view. That is a gorgeous view. Oh, is that an apple? No, it's an apple. Yeah, amazing. And this is what, flint? Do you know what type of bonding material that is?
What, the building material that they're using? I think is...
It's like a flint. I think it was flint wall, it looked like. It's fine. Oh, he's now gone to visit some dam. A dam in Mora. Interesting. Is it a famous dam?
I think that's the big one, the big dam. Yeah, the all these kind of dams that have been built, which was actually thankful to them being built that we started to find all of those archaeological sites as well. Even though some of them got to be swallowed by the waters themselves. Well, some of them were protected with sandbags and protected for future excavations when the dam finally will cease to exist. So archaeologists may return there and do some other surveys if they need to learn a little bit more about the sites.
That's the one good thing about infrastructure, actually. It's that it does give you the opportunity to look at things that you'd never even know existed, or there'll be no funding, there'll be no opportunity to excavate those sites. So it's one of the positives of work on development
Yes,
sites.
the positive things, yes. It can be all bad.
Yeah, depending, exactly.
Yeah.
So I've noticed in some of your reports online, by the way, I will put a link into Marco's academia profile. I will add that later. There's so many articles on there. One thing I noticed is animal depictions. And I found that quite interesting. And I think our viewers will as well. So I'm just going to share some photos. And these are beautiful. So where did you find this?
Well, all of these coins, they were actually part of a private owner collection that had like almost 400 coins, beside all of other things that he kept, like from a church that was destroyed. He kept like some of the columns and some things that were going to go to the garbage bin, and no one will ever care for that. So those last testimonies, he kept all of them because he had the dream to one day build an archaeological museum there for all the people in Pias to get proud of their past origins. So I
Wow.
started studying some of the coins as well. So these coins, you want me to talk a little bit about
Yeah,
them?
please, if possible. How old
Well,
are they? What material is it?
well, they are all in bronze. And for instance, the one we see in the upper left of the observer, the one that has an eagle depicted on it, it's a consecratio coin. Usually it's a coin that is minted when the following emperor comes. He mints that coin in homage of the late deceased one. Sometimes it's being used like that, being the eagle, the symbol of the empire, the strength of the empire. So on the upper right, we have the figure of a bull that's from Lepida Salsa. That was a colony that was founded by one of the generals of Octavius, I think. And but it didn't last too long because nearby there was another settlement that started to gain more to be more known, more famous. That was Cesar Augusta, that's nowadays Saragossa in Spain. This was from Lepida Salsa, and it depicts a bull because the bull cults in all the Mediterranean link all those people to the strength of the bull and what it represents. Even Zeus, when he kidnapped Europa, he came in the shape of a bull also. So, and on the lower left of the observer, we can see a depiction of a Roman legionnaire. This one is from the late Roman Empire. I think is from the 4th century after Christ, Anno Domini. And it depicts a Roman legionnaire. And you may see that the Roman legionnaire is in a scale more larger than his fallen enemy. This thing comes after the depictions in the East, when you, for instance, see the Narmer stele that was supposedly the first pharaoh of Egypt, where he's depicted also on a larger scale regarding his enemies. So is at the enemy of the Roman Empire that's fallen under his horse is like in a smaller scale. And you can see the right foot of the legionnaire is on top of the horse, on top of the fallen horse of the enemy. And the left foot is on a straight line that it symbolizes the order of the Roman world. And what it had that written there, it was Felicitas Tempum Reparatium. It means like we're bringing back the good old days of the Roman Empire through our legions, because the Roman civilization, a common citizen in Roman times, he could not read, so he could see the coins and the figures in the coin. So it's like propaganda for the Roman Empire, like fear not, because the Roman legions are here, we will keep you safe. So it's like passing a message like that.
Mm.
And on the lower right of the screen, we can see the wolf of the Capitol Hill that was supposedly the one that was breastfeeding the two twins that founded Rome, Romulus and Remus. And you can see depicted two stars that show the divine origin of Romulus and Remus, and also like a cross on top of the she wolf, the female wolf. I'm sorry. That's because this was a coin that on the main face of the coin it had depicted Constantinople, and when this coin was minted during the time of Constantine, it's when he moved the Roman capital from Rome to Constantinople. So it was like saying that I'm moving the capital here, but we will still continue on the tradition of the Roman foundation of Rome. So what I'm doing here is basically I'm just transferring the capital, but Rome will still be Rome and Constantinople now the capital. But the wolf here is as that powerful image because she was the one taking care of the founders of Rome.
It's amazing how much propaganda, how much messages are put on something so small. And this is coinage. This is used by well, I would say everybody, but of course I'm sure not everyone can afford to have even these coins. But whoever has them, if they look at it, they're subconsciously taking this information in. And as you said, all of them are so interesting. It's not just an animal. What are they trying to show? Thank you for explaining that. They're really wow. And with these type of, have you actually found any coins like this before yourself in an excavation?
Yeah, on excavations and on surveys as well, like Sestercius from Alexander Severus. It's amazing when they appear because they show us all of these informations as well. Besides giving us like a chronological base to work on or work with, they also share with you all of these messages when you read them. Yeah.
For our viewers watching this on YouTube or Instagram, if you have any questions about something like the coinage here or anything for Marco, please send them in now and we will hopefully get to them shortly. Okay.
On this collection, there was a coin from London, Londinium, for Crispus.
Oh,
yeah.
really? Oh,
Yep.
wow. Okay. Have you got a photo of that? Not for now, for another time. Please send that to me. I'll put it on Instagram. You know, a colleague of mine, maybe 10 years ago, they're on an excavation in London and they found like a large stone slab that had Londinium, and it's the first one that they had found. It's amazing sometimes when you see this material culture that defines a place, it defines people, and for centuries on, it affects. And it's just so amazing sometimes when you're able to touch it, even after hundreds of years. I think that's why I love the job so much.
Yeah, and feel all those stories that are there.
Yeah, especially with coins. There's so much. So this is something else that caught my attention. And it was actually just reading the caption, depiction of dog, and then I had to really look into it. So
yeah, it's an interpretation, yeah. But
yeah.
we think, well, this is actually part of this is a situla that is part of a Roman vessel, usually in metal. They're made of metal, and they were used to keep the handle when you grab it by the handle. So they fixed the handle to the vessel itself. You have one on each end. Some of them usually have the human depictions or other animals. This one seemed to be an Andalusian dog, for what I saw with a colleague that is a biologist, and she studies mostly she studied felines, but she also helped me to see that this could be also the representation of an Andalusian dog that was a dog that existed in the Roman times here on this area. So it could be, it could well be a representation of an Andalusian dog.
Wow. Okay. I mean, it's a very big statement, but it's amazing to think that that could be that breed. Very interesting. So is this the nose, right? It's
Yep.
the face.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the
Okay.
nose. That's
I was
it.
just trying to work out. So this is the nose.
Yep.
So how can she? Is it because the stout? Is it this nose area that she's able to
Yeah,
work
the
out the?
size of the nose of the dog. If you see an Andalusian dog picture, you can see that there are some similarities. But I'm saying that this is just an interpretation. It's
Yes.
not nothing 100% sure.
Unfortunately, we can't go back in time. Unfortunately. Okay.
We can't talk to the manufacturer.
No, we can't. So this as well, this caught my attention when I was reading your reports online. Link will be in the bio after this video. So could you please explain more about this goat and
Well,
why you think it's divine?
Well, the goat is really interesting because still today in Pias, the main feasts they have there are dedicated to Santa Lucia and Saint Louis. And they still today, Saint Louis is used, the image of that saint, that male saint, is used by the priest to give some blessings to the cattle, to the goats, to the sheep, to all the cattle that is surrounded there on a small church that exists far away from the settlement, nowadays settlement, but more next to some settlements from Roman times and previously. So actually this goat depicts Ataijin or Proserpine or whatever god you want to talk. It depicts the image of a god because you can see on her front there's a star, a small star carved there, yes. So that it depicts her divine origin. And some of these goats, female or male, have been found around this area surrounding also Pias. And in Spain, also Torrebriga was the main center for worshiping this goddess. This goddess was used usually by, we have an example in Alcácer do Sal, that you see the goat itself, and then you have an inscription on the pedestal that the goat was lying in. And the inscriptions shows us that women were not very their word was not fully understood and in legal terms in Roman era, because we saw that she married a Roman citizen and her lands were robbed from her. When she tried to go to the Roman justice, because that man that she broke up with, that he broke up with her, was a Roman citizen, he could never be charged by her. So she lost all her lands that she had previously to that man itself. So what she ordered someone to write was simply that, please, God, Goddess Atajin, help me, because the justice of man didn't help me and didn't serve me for me to get my land restored. Please, Goddess Atajin, make my land to be restored to me. And then she dropped that figure on a well that was discovered by colleagues, archaeologists. And nowadays we know that she existed, that she had some issues with getting her land back, only because she ordered it to be written on the small figure also of the goddess Atajin. She dropped it on that well, and some thousand years after, archaeologists found it, and now we know her story just because of that.
That is amazing. It's just one of those things, especially in the Roman times. All of their rituals, especially when they're trying to pray for something, and they have, as you said, these sort of objects, and they put it in certain places, or they go to their gods and they worship their god, and then they give something. It's like giving something as a representation. It's really interesting that we're able to find it.
Yeah, and this goddess itself, it's also interesting. She was also considered to be the god, the representation of the moon. And still today in Pias, when the babies are born, they're taken by their parents to the Roman Catholic Church to be baptized. But after that ritual happened, some of them take their children and take them to a lady that lives in Pias. And that lady, in the first full moon, she grabs that baby and she dedicates that baby to the moon goddess, to the protection of the moon goddess, still today. So still today, Atajin lives.
Wow. It's the power of the people right there. Power of religion, power of faith. It's
It's,
amazing if you look at
we
it.
see that in the rural areas, because the time works more slowly, we see that these things, they stick, they stay there, and we just have to see and watch and learn, and then we can, it's like collecting small pieces of the puzzle, and you started to gather things and you start to see the whole picture forming in front of you.
Fascinating. We have a few questions on YouTube. Maybe we can ask them first before we go on to your introduction of another site. Is that okay?
Yes, that's okay.
Yeah? Okay, great. So first of all, hello to Indian Archaeology Centre. Thank you for joining us. Hello to past preservers. Hello to Barbara, Emily, Angelina, and Simple Archaeology. We have questions from Simple Archaeology. We'll go with that first. They've asked, when did the Romans first arrive at Pias, and why was it strategically important to them?
Well, the Romans in Pias, when they arrived, they came to pacify that area because the Iberian Peninsula was an area full of people that value their freedom. So that's why we have some heroes that were built up a little bit by the fascist regime, but they actually existed like Viriatus. Well, like Viriatus is the one carrying like the cub of the like the sheaf from the tribe. So Viriatus was not only one man; it could have been several men, several leaders that were fighting back the Roman army. The Roman legions came to this area because this area was very rich in minerals like copper or silver or gold. Actually, the coins that were minted in the Roman Empire in gold and silver, most of them, if you do some analysis, they came from this area of the Iberian Peninsula. That's how it shows that this area was really very important. And it's also connected to some legends. Like when some colleagues also say that when Plato spoken about Lemuria, that others call them now Atlantis, that they say that actually Atlantis was the whole Iberian Peninsula because it was rich in these minerals. It has like the rocks and all those depictions that Plato was doing. So it was one of the probable sites for Atlantis, that mythical land of richness. And when the Romans actually came, they came to conquer this area because it was rich, all of those riches, and also because the how to say, the horses, they were very famous in all of the empire. When you see some descriptions from Roman geographers, they spoke a lot about the female horses of near the Tagus River, and how they could run like angels or the creatures from the sky, because this was a land that was very rich, also agriculturally speaking, Lower Alentejo.
Would you like to show them, tell them a little bit about the castle, maybe? It'd be quite nice to show them a little bit about the castle you just mentioned, and then we'll get back to your questions. So Marco just mentioned Copper Castle, which is here. So Marco, as we're talking about the Romans, it's a nice place to start, I would say. So this location, I know we have a video next to show them, but is there anything you'd like to say about these pictures before we show the video?
Well, actually, I would like also to pay an homage to Luís Fraga da Silva, which was the one that was sharing it on Facebook and another media. He recently passed away this year, so he was going to be part of this project. He was a known geographer and founder of the Tavira archaeological field, and so one of the things that we want to do is to pay an homage to him. And if this project goes forward like we intend to, it will be one day to have like an interpretive center and a library dedicated to him, the library and interpretive center of Luís Fraga da Silva. So I wanted just to pay this homage to this friend, this great researcher that passed away recently.
Rest in peace.
Yes.
Okay. Shall we show the video that you made? You and your
Yeah.
colleagues made, yeah? Okay, let's show that video.
It's a very raw video still, but it's a start.
It's a start, and yeah, just in advance, Marco kindly sent this to us for the live stream. Of course, there will be a later version, and then we can add the link into the description for you all. Okay, so let's have a little look at the video, and then we will discuss further, and then we will get to your questions. So the questions will be in about maybe 10-15 minutes, okay?
Okay.
Let's go.
This is what our eyes may see today regarding the old copper castle, or as you may see it in Portuguese, the Castelo Velho dos Cobras. Old Copper Castle is located in southern Portugal, Lower Alentejo, Beja District, Castro Verde Municipality. This was undoubtedly one of the most important places in the south of the Iberian Peninsula, as it had consecutive moat lines and walls which attest to its strategic importance in an area rich in copper, silver, and gold minerals. This will perhaps be the heart of an ancient kingdom that existed over 2,000 years ago, according to the opinion of some archaeologists and geographers, among other scientists. It was occupied between the early Iron Age and the beginning of Romanization, for what we know so far. The international project of the Old Copper Castle intends to answer the following questions through the decades of study that are still ahead. What was the Old Copper Castle? The capital of the Kingdom of the Coney people, or one of its most important cities? A mere fortified Roman villa? Who originally built it? Does it have occupations merely from the Iron Age and Roman era, or from any other periods? Why does it have a defensive system of the most impressive moats and walls located in the south of the whole Iberian Peninsula? Why was that particular site chosen for its foundation? How was it developed, and why was it abandoned? We invite you to join our expedition in the search for answers that have been closed for millennia under the soil at this impressive place. Southern Portugal Archaeology awaits you with open arms for your help in writing a part of its past forgotten history.
There we go. So it's a lovely introduction into the site itself. And again, here is the pictures of the castle, Roman fort. How big is this area? Roughly?
Well, actually, the settlement can be 17 acres, but this is just a mere estimate because we don't know, because the only works that were carried out there were, like I said, in 1974, Manuel Maia did like a small 4x4 excavation survey. And in that 4x4 excavation, he found lots of decorative ceramics, but also that bronze figure of Ataijin also appeared there, and other metal objects of prestige. So it served to show that it's an important site, but without further excavations and further use of geophysics and all of the things that we intend to do there, we cannot know for sure.
Mm. And here we have a few more images. So we have what, moat lines, which is this bit here. We have, again, another, is this another part of the fort? So this is the fort here.
On the top, we have the old copper castle. The Roman fort, his name is Manuel Galus. It's one of some forts that exist in Castro Verde and some also in Martola. And we intend also to start excavating there because the owners of some of those castles already show themselves to be open for archaeologists to come, because we can do whatever we want to, have geophysics ready and whatever, but if we get there and the owners don't let you in, you can forget about everything.
I completely understand that one. So when they're letting you in, it's out of the goodness of their heart. It's not for development purposes, right? So
well, some of the owners, I think they expect to earn something with it as well, because people sometimes in these areas that remain in schist, so they don't get too much from the lands nowadays, and they also always expect to earn something. So that's understandable.
if it's their only means, yes, it is understandable. Who would pay them though? So is it in the sense of if they found something, they would hope to make some money off it? So if they found like everybody hopes for a hoard, don't they? They always think that they're going to find a hoard of coins.
Yeah,
so
but it's not like when you read like the National Geographic and you see, oh, a hoard was found in England and the owner would just walk like 30 meters and then there was the gold thing there, and he received 3.3 million pounds. And well, it's not here in Portugal, people are entitled to get a little bit of it, but I think it's like 5 to 10%. So usually what people do when they find things, they don't tell, and the ones that know where to do things, they sell things abroad. So sometimes we begin to find some of the things that come from the Iberian Peninsula in auctions like Sotheby's and whatever, because they take them there. So but we lose all the context. We lose them forever. So
it's the hardest part, I think, when you lose the context. You can't, you lose everything that you would have hoped to research, because for archaeologists it's not just the artifact, there's so much more. And unfortunately some people just treasure hunters, they just want money and they want to loot it, in other words. It's a real shame.
Here in Portugal, for instance, if you could do like there in England, that when people go with a metal detector, they have to be registered, they have to have a license, they have to warn the archaeologists, and when they find something, they call the archaeologist so that the archaeologist can excavate the context. So I think the UK is like an example to follow. Because if we don't follow it, more things will continue to disappear from Portugal. So
it's a problem that a lot of countries are faced with, and it's a real unfortunate truth. So here we have some other images that I found. Would you be able to just to give us a bit of an insight to why they're so significant?
I'm getting some
delays again.
Yeah, delays, that's it.
Would you be able just to describe what we're looking at right now, please?
Well, these are other patrimonies that we can see in Castro Verde. A lot of colleagues have worked for them and they made them available. So in the upper left, we have the Lucerna Museum. That's a museum only dedicated to Roman Lucerna. That's what the Romans used to get the lightings for them. And they all came from more than 30 30,000 deposits, votive deposit of Roman Lucerna that was found by our colleagues Manuel Maya again and his late deceased wife. And they depict mostly is religious motifs like the god sun or Selen, the goddess of the moon. And we also have some gladiator fights and other scenes from the usual day of a Roman town, but mostly they are connected to religious motifs and they're from a votive deposit. And it's really quite interesting, all of the scenes that you may see and all the stories they have to tell. They are renewing constantly the exhibit because they are still gluing all the pieces, so there will be far more than 30,000 Lucerna that have been found so far.
That's amazing.
And we on the right upper corner we have the Castro Verde Royal Basilica. It was built by a Portuguese king in homage of a supposed battle that occurred in Ourique, where the first king of Portugal, Alfonso Henriques, supposedly vanquished 5 Moorish kings, and that became like the founding moment of Portugal. And it's dedicated to Our Lady of Conception, because Our Lady of Conception, when the Portuguese regained their independence from the Spanish in 1640, the Portuguese king John IV, he crowned Our Lady Mary as the Queen of Portugal from that time on. Whenever Portugal was under a monarchy, the main Queen of Portugal, the protector of Portugal, would be a woman, would be the Mary, the mother of Jesus. So, and it's a royal basilica in the middle of, you can say nowhere, but it shows the importance of that site as well in those days. And we have on the lower right corner the head of Saint Fabianus. This cult of the heads also could be linked sometimes with some pagan cults from Celtic tribes. For instance, there's the head also in Lisbon from Saint Bridget that came from England, I think, and it was a gift for a Portuguese king, and it's her head that came and that was worshipped there in medieval era, but nowadays it's forgotten, but she's still there. And all of these cults from the heads come from, sometimes the influence comes from the Celtic tribes, because the head was seen like a trophy.
Mm. And then we have, that's really interesting actually, that they worship.
So you want me to talk about these ones in Myrtilla?
Just choose one. Just one is fine, because I'm worried about the time for you and your Wi-Fi. So let's choose one. What's the one of the most significant images in this part?
Actually, Myrtilla is very rich by its natural geographical formations, like the wolf's leap that you can see on the lower left. But you can also see like those lions that are confronting themselves. And these are from mosaics that are from late Roman era. And they show that Myrtilla, for instance, had some commercial communities from the Far East living there, because the colleagues working on the archaeological field of Myrtilla that have been working there for more than 40 years, they found that lots of baptisteries that where the new Christians will be baptized from several communities living in that area, but from different Christian beliefs. But they were living together and they were doing trade together. So that's why they call Myrtilla the last harbor from the Mediterranean. When they made an exhibit also about it, they call it the last harbor from the Mediterranean, because it proves, and like I think it was last year, or that they found some Roman statues from a large Roman temple from Octavius Augustus era that shows that it was really a very important city because they found also a representation that could be from an emperor, like from Augustus, that has the military uniform on him. So still today, the colleagues there are finding magnificent things. So it's well worth a visit.
There you go. Marco's telling you have to go and visit there. Okay, once lockdown is lifted, let's all book the flight. I'd love to go there. Actually, Portugal is in general is rich with archaeology. I don't know, how long would you need if you had to just travel around Portugal? Say you had a car and you could drive around. How long? 1 month, 2 months?
Well, if you want to see things like in a rush, but you could choose some cities and then go there for a month, like an area, like 1 month to the to Alentejo, the whole Alentejo. That's one of the biggest provinces, and it's where I want to continue working. So I expect to continue to work when I return to Portugal as well. So you can start with Alentejo, yes, and you will see lots of patrimony, archaeology, the people, the food, everything, actually.
Oh, there is one question regarding what we just saw. I'll quickly share the screen again. This is from Angelina. Hi, hello, Angelina. She's asked that she sees a Roman house and she just wanted to know how much was preserved of the Roman house.
Well, what you see here, defined as Roman house, it's actually under the city hall. When they were starting to do some works there, they found that they had remains of a Roman building. So they preserved most of the walls, and now this is where they keep most of the Roman artifacts that appear. They're kept there, so they call it the Roman house because you have like some statue. You have a statue there. Some things that were discovered in Murchel were actually taken to Lisbon, but we hope that in the future places like this and others can see these objects also restored to where they first came from, and they get their own museum there so that visitors can come not only to Lisbon, but it can also come to visit Myrtle and other sites.
Brilliant, thank you for that. I think before we show photos of you at work and maybe a little bit more about those Instagram posts that I did share over the last few days, is it okay if we answer a few more questions from YouTube?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, great. So I have the first question, or another question I should say. This is from Maria. Hello, Maria. Or was it Mariah? I've never said your name out loud. I do apologize. She's an artist that did our Archaeology Avengers. So please check out her Instagram account and her comics. It's amazing. Thank you for your question. She's asked, this is going back a little bit regarding the goddess Attigen. She was asking, where else is the goddess Attigen worshipped, or which goddesses might be similar to her? She's so interesting. Thank you.
Well, actually, the main place of worship is in Trowel, that is nowadays Spain, but not very far from Pias. It's what the colleagues believe. It was the main focus, main center of worshiping for this goddess, but actually she was worshipped throughout the Roman Empire. She was given that kind of honor that usually the Romans give, like for instance, for Isis. We have lots of Isis statues in Portugal that when you go to a church and you see the Holy Mary holding the baby Jesus and is breastfeeding the baby Jesus, actually that could have been a site where Isis was being worshipped, breastfeeding Horus. So you see all these things is like the tales that start and then they begin changing through the eras, but some of the figures still remain. Only the names change, some characters appear, others go, and then you can trace them back to, some colleagues say even the Paleolithic. So So this goddess, it's very interesting that still today we have the worshippers of Saint Louis and Saint Lucia. That's Lucia is the god, the saint, the Christian saint for the diseases of the eyes. And actually, when you worshipped Ataijin, she was a goddess that when we invoke her, was to get free from the bad omens and the bad looks when people were trying to put a curse on you. So she was being used against it. So it's actually peculiar that the image of a Christian saint that's used to heal the eyes is still today worshipped in these clothings, because Atajin could be a male or a female goat, and you have the male and the female on Saint Louis and Saint Lucia. So
Is there a way to tell which one it's supposed to depict? Do they, or, oh, actually, it's a goat. Of course,
male
there
or
is.
female, male or female, they depict the same goddess. Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay. That's really interesting. Thank you for that. Now, I think after this, I might have to do some more research into the goddesses, because there's something you said, and it's so true. When we look at how cultures, or just we're talking about religion in a sense, we're talking about worshipping, how you see the traits continue on, the names change, sometimes the animal, the deity itself, but once you start piecing it together, you start to see a correlation.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. Prehistoric, they think it can go this far back.
Yeah, because when you speak, for instance, of Noah, and you see the Gilgamesh story, that it's the same. So
It's fascinating. Okay, we have another question. Let's see. Okay, this is from Alex. Thank you, Alex. We were talking about Pias, I think, again. And they've just basically asked, this place is undeniably considered a place of power, but are there any magical stories about this place? What legends exist regarding this place? Now, you did mention Atlantis earlier. Is there any other legends associated with this region, or is it just mainly Atlantis?
well, actually, in Pias, some colleagues also found nearby an amulet. I'm sorry not to have the image here, because it's an amulet from Islamic era, and supposedly, according to the Quran, you cannot be superstitious, but you have an amulet against the evil eye. Again, you see in the Islamic era something that can connect you also to the Atajin, and casting away the bad looks and all the curses that were upon you. And this was an Islamic era. So we see that, yeah, Pias is a place that was very important, and it's a place of very strong, you feel the strength of this place when you go around by the streams or by the hills, and when you start seeing it as it was in Bronze Age, the Iron Age, Roman era, and you start to see it and you get the image of it on your mind, because you know the archaeological sites, and you start to see that, wow, this was really overpopulated, and this was something huge, of huge importance. But most of it is still under the soil, so.
That's true. That's very, very true. And unfortunately, we don't have X-ray vision. I mean, we have some tools, we do have technology, but there's nothing as being intrusive and digging it up. So we can either have a quick look into some photos that you sent of you on site, if that's possible. I know we're running short on time, but I'm sure we have a little bit of time left to show this. There we go. I'll just forward it again. Oh, there we go. So this is actually something that I posted, I think yesterday, on my Instagram, and people were asking a little bit about this fragment of pottery that we see here. It's beautiful. and I think it's the same piece that she's cleaning here, I hope.
Yeah, that's it.
And how old is this piece of pottery, and what is this feature?
Well, actually, this place that my colleague is doing the survey, and she's defining a cup that's from the late Bronze Age and early Iron Age. And this place was being used as asylum to perhaps storage some cereals, because we also found some tools in quartz that were used to make some objects that you were using to how to say, to catch the wheat. Yes, and then
Yes, can't
that's
think of
it.
the word. Sorry.
Yeah,
I know what you mean.
yeah. But nearby we found a deposit, a votive deposit, also with some cups, and all of the recipients, the vessels, they were decorated with geometric figures on the outside, and it's being still currently under study by some other colleagues, that they're cleaning everything, because you see that that white thing around it, it's lime. So they were all covered in lime, like concrete. So we have to be extra carefully removing it from the vessels, because if we remove them with lots of pressure, the figures will go out and we would never notice them.
And you just reminded me, here we have another one. I think was this feature next to the last one, or was this separate excavation?
Yes, it was. They were linked
Together.
together. And
And
we have a small recipient there.
so, as you can see, the viewers watching this, I just kind of angled this photo so you can kind of see there's Marco, and here's the feature again.
Yeah, that's it.
Get a nice little angle. So, Marco, how was the process of excavating this? You know, how long did it take? Because you have to be a lot more precise than usual, you know, even slower, I should say, not precise. You have to be a lot more slower in excavating this feature.
Well, actually, this site, we didn't excavate it fully. It was found when they were terraforming like a road to get the trucks to a dam that was being built. And it was just on the last moment when they decided to dig a ditch so that the water could flow from the road. They, when they were doing the ditch, five structures appeared, and we managed to get like a month to excavate them fully, and with all the methods being taken very carefully, very describing everything, because the votive deposit is not very common to appear. I think that in Portugal it appeared in some like 5 to 10 sites so far, but I'm not fully aware of all the excavations still going on there. But it's like the vessels were broken there, and they were not just broken by chance. They would put the vessel there and they'd throw a stone to the vessel and it was broken. And some other vessels, they broke those vessels into like dozens of pieces, and they put like the rims in one side, and then they put the base of the vessel in another side. So everything was done with extra care. It was not a thing done randomly.
It just reminded me of, is this what you mean more so about how you have more kind of?
Yeah, that they are distributed in certain areas of the negative. And you see on the lower right, you can see a little bit of, you see some rocks that are breaking one of the pots, and the pot is there.
Let me see.
It's next to the scale.
Is it here?
No, on the other picture.
This one?
There is the places of a pot, yes, on the other one. But here you see the pot is there, the the wall of the vessel, and there's a stone there that was thrown there to break that vessel precisely on that spot.
Kind of reminds me of Greek tradition now. You know, well, for us, when we go to a Greek restaurant and you smash the plates, it just reminds me of that. It's very interesting.
Maybe you can look to this place, to this time and period.
Yeah, I wonder what was the reason behind it.
Well, one of the things that we find, because we didn't find no burial around, but usually these structures, these votive deposits, are like when they're doing some rituals to dig some of their deceased, their departed ones, they do some cook some ritual, some meals to honor the ones that have passed away, and sometimes they break the pots, but they don't break them randomly. So that's why we are saying that this could be the case, but we actually need more research around it, because we can have some how to say, some graves nearby from late Bronze Age, early Iron Age, but this is a mere hypothesis so far. But other sites that were found were having some burials. They had some sites where they were cooking some of these ritual meals, and also the ceramic vessels here, they were all decorated with decorative motifs, while in the ones that were being used as xylems, none of those vessels were decorated.
And just for anyone who, just so you understand how this picture comes along, this is how it probably looked before. Actually, it would have been covered with this vegetation right there. And then did you take off a layer with the machine or hand all the way?
Only the upper layer with the how to say, the roots was taken. Yeah, that top one. All the other ones that were affected in the late 20th century, because you can see these ditches there. These ditches is from the plows, when they were plowing the fields with those metal plows. We found some remainings of those metal plows there still. So it affected the structure as well. It was one of the latest things to affect the structure. Also, the construction of the road and the opening of the thing to divert the waters. So that also got like half of the structure that you can see on the right. But mostly after the stratigraphical destruction made by the plow, everything was still there as it was left like 2,500 years ago.
That's so cool. I don't think people understand, like for us archaeologists especially, well, I hope for you guys as well, but I have to be realistic. I don't think you understand like how awesome it is to see something like this for anyone really. And again, roughly how old is this these bits of pottery?
Well, it's from the late Bronze Age, early Iron Age. So we're saying like 2,500, 2,750 years ago, more or less.
It's interesting. See, it's very interesting, guys. Appreciate. So there's something else that I put on Instagram. I think that was yesterday, yes, or today. And please tell us a little bit more about this little beauty.
Yeah, that's an arrow tip, but it was what we believe it was mostly used to hunt like small animals. It was the only metal object that we found. It was analyzed by some colleagues, and the constitution of the metal, it's similar to the ones from the late Bronze Age, early Iron Age. Actually, it was this small piece of this small fragment of arrow that helped us to say the chronological period of the votive deposit itself, because we were able, our colleagues were able on the laboratory to analyze the composition of the metal lead.
That's really cool. So again, for anybody who didn't catch that, how old is it, Marco? You're saying again, around 2,500.
2,500 to 2,750 years.
That's old. It's very cool. It's actually quite small. I'm looking at the size. This scale, is it 5 centimeters each block? The scale?
No, it's 1 centimeter. Actually.
1 meter. So it's very tiny.
So it's very small. Yeah.
Great find.
That's why you say it was used to hunt small sized animals. Yeah.
Yeah. In this region,
maybe it was still inside of one of those pieces of meat that they cook.
That's true. I mean, who knows? It might have been something where we have in the UK, they have a tradition where when they shoot these birds, I've forgotten the technical term. I mean, I don't eat meat, but they bull shot, I think cap shot, but whichever part of the bird that has the bullet in when they go bird shooting, whoever eats that, it's like a cool thing to have. Like, oh, I've got the piece with this bullet in. So maybe it was the same with the arrowhead. Like, oh, I've got the bit with the.
Yeah, perhaps because it was the only arrowhead that we found there on that precise votive deposit. Yes, it can be something like that.
Interesting. It's very cool. And I'm just going to quickly see about any other questions whilst we're talking about arrowheads, which everybody loves. Oh, so what time period is this? Is there like a particular...
Yeah, this is late Bronze Age, early Iron Age.
But is there like a particular civilization or type of people and epoch for this region?
Well, actually, we found a settlement when we were following, because they were building a dam there, and that dam was going to be linked to another one that was located in Mora. And when we were going by the stream, that nowadays is just a small stream, but in those days it was a large river. So when we go around following that river, the machines were excavating to build up the pipes like 8 meters deep. We found like a settlement, and we follow that settlement for, we think that it could be a settlement because we had like the huts there still, lines, moat lines also filled with materials. So, but only a small portion was excavated. Actually, the one where they were going to put those pipes to link one dam to the other one. But for over 2 kilometers, we found traces of what seemed to be a large settlement or some huts that were being kept along that river for at least 2 kilometers.
That's very cool. Very interesting. I'm just going to see quickly any more questions that I've missed. Oh, this is a lovely question. And I'm going to put it back to this one. So, Marco, this question is from Simple Archaeology, and they've asked, who inspired your archaeological career? Is there maybe past archaeologists in your research area? Why are you so fascinated with Pias?
Well, I'm fascinated with Pias and archaeology. Archaeology first was because when I was a little boy, my father used to give me books, and some books that I've got spoke about Troy and Heinrich Schliemann and his dream of finding Troy. And I think I was a little bit inspired by it because also my father used to give me tales from all mythologies around the world. And I was very fond of the tales from the Greek mythology and the Roman era also, the Celtic, a little bit of worldwide religion. And when I started to read those books, I started to think that one day I would love to find my own Troy. So when I got to Pias and all of these things start to appear, and people still today, they come to me by the Facebook and whatever, and they say, oh, I've got this at my home. I've got like these things. I've got like some small figures, and they describe them to me, but they are still a little bit afraid, because whenever people say that, oh, archaeologists are coming, oh, they're not going to let you build anything there, or we're like the boogeyman for some people. But when we start to speak with them and they start to see what is archaeology through the mouth of an archaeologist, they start thinking, wow, but well, I was never told this before. So I think that the passion comes because people also come, they are eager to know. So if you learn something and you're an archaeologist and you studied and your country also helped you to get that degree, because um, the teaching here in Portugal, education is free. So sometimes I feel like I owe something. And if I'm working with a community in particular, and I see that that community has interest on learning a little bit more about their past, so I think it's my obligation, my duty to them to also share with them a little bit of my knowledge and a little bit actually of their past ancestors there. And when they start to see, wow, they were already worshiping the moon, but my son, I baptized him and I worshiped him to the moon still also. Oh, that comes from those eras. And like when you start bringing all this connection together and you start telling the stories of the objects made by people just like them, they feel like a bond coming between them. And so that's a magical moment as well. So what's the passion comes from there a little bit too.
And you know, there's something you said about Troy. Now, if I remember correctly, isn't there some legends that depict the people from Troy after it was ruined, that they came to this region and resettled?
Well, the legends say that they come to Etruria and they founded also Rome and other things. There are some legends here regarding people, but they're mostly legends because archaeology is still developing, and we are still finding out the things that we can. But yes, some legends say that other people came and they founded, and we know that migrations came. We also know that when there was the last glacier period, the Worm period, that the Iberian Peninsula worked like a safe haven. And then when the defrost came, people start to migrate from here also to Ireland, Scotland, the British Isles, also to the northwestern part of France. And that's why we have connections of the megaliths, some legends. Also, we have a legend here in Portugal, just to finalize this part. That's the foundational myths of Portugal, Ireland, and Scotland. And you know that the Queen of England today, or the next king, when he will be crowned, he will be crowned over the altar, but under the altar, there's the coronation stone. That coronation stone came from Scotland, and the independence, this party from Scotland wants it to be returned back, because they say that that's where the Scottish kings were being made kings, that stone. And there's a story saying that that stone was taken by a prince from the Iberian Peninsula, actually, to the Scottish, to those isles, and it was taken with them. And it was already the stone where the kings from the Iberian Peninsula were being crowned too. So I think that the Arthurian legends of the king being taken by the force of the sword that came from the stone, that it's all, when you start to see all these legends and to follow them, you start to see all these connections, all these bonds as well.
That's awesome. I like that idea actually a lot. There you go. There's even more reasons to come to your region, I think. I think this definitely, hopefully, will increase tourism, archaeological and historical tourism, hopefully. So, Marco, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you today. Thank you so much for joining us all the way from Mozambique. Kind of jealous of the weather. I hope you're all well over there. Do you know when you're going to be able to be working in Portugal?
I don't know, maybe still this year, but I'm not sure, because the project that we have been working with is a little bit postponed because of the virus, but they've disinfected everything, and hopefully the guerrilla, the terrorists haven't come here still, so we still have our heads on top of our shoulders. So we have all those issues here, but I think that still this year, perhaps I will return.
Well, be safe. It's been, again, an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for speaking with us today. Everyone on YouTube as well is saying thank you so much. You know, Winston is saying very interesting. We've got audience from Ukraine. Hello, Ukraine. We have Barbara saying as well, it's been fascinating listening to you. Thank you so much. And in general, everyone is just really positive about this. So hopefully we get to speak again and maybe focus it more on Mozambican archaeology, because I think we've run out of time for today. Otherwise, we'd be here for another hour. And we know how the current situation is over there with the Wi-Fi, and we don't want the electric to go out. So maybe we'll do another time. We can maybe address Mozambican archaeology, and hopefully in the future, when your book comes out, People of Pias, it'd be great to do another maybe group video about that with the other researchers. That'd be really fun.
Yeah, that will be, yes.
Yeah. So
thank you very much. It was also a big pleasure to speak to all of you today. Thank you.
YouTube, it's been a pleasure as always. Instagram, see you soon. Oh, one more question. One more question. Okay, I'll answer this. Let me have a quick. Yes, Alex, we will make a live stream about Mozambican archaeology and medieval Portuguese history. We can do both of those for sure. We can do that next time. Marco, if you're definitely up for that. Yes. He's up for it. Okay, brilliant. Again, thank you all for tuning in today. Have a lovely evening. Be safe and see you all soon. Okay. Goodbye, YouTube. Goodbye. That's me singing. YouTube is off.